Hi, my name is Kathy Osland, and I'm a registered dietitian. Thank you for joining me today to learn about gardening. As a dietitian, I get pretty excited about high quality, gorgeous, fresh food. And what better way to obtain it than to grow your own? Today I hope to share some useful information to get you started down the gardening path. In the spirit of full disclosure, I will openly confess I'm not a gardening expert. There is no master gardener in my title. The good news is even beginners can be successful gardeners, and that's the beauty of square foot gardening, a technique I've been using the last 10 years.
Gardening in general offers us many gifts. First, nutritious food. Fresh picked produce contains the highest nutrient levels possible. It hasn't been sitting around for days on a shelf somewhere losing vitamins. How about the taste? Nothing can quite compare to a fresh picked tomato warm from the sun. Growing your own also empowers you to control what products are used on your plants, making it easy to provide organic food to your family. Next, there are cost savings. While there are initial upfront costs of starting a garden, overall you will easily recuperate costs and save money even in the first year. Gardening provides physical activity in a pleasurable format in which you may not even realize you're exercising, especially as it's combined with getting fresh air and having a connection to nature. What a great stress relief. It allows for peace and tranquility, and don't we all need some of that after a long day? Given the above, gardening is healthy for the whole family. It provides quality family time and gets children and adults alike to reduce their screen time. Finally, gardening provides a sense of community. When you get a few neighbors or colleagues gardening, soon they start to share tips and tricks, swap seeds and seedlings, and share yields. Aren't those a lot of great reasons to garden? Many people tell me that they like to garden, but they have obstacles in their way. They don't have enough time, not enough space, don't have the right equipment, have poor soil, or it's too complicated and they just simply lack the knowledge of knowing all those rules of which plants you need to plant together, the pH levels of soil. Many of these obstacles can be overcome by trying a more simple, small-scale gardening method, and that method is square foot gardening. Bartholomew developed square foot gardening in the 1970s. Some of the techniques that form the basis of it have been around for centuries. This includes using raised beds so you don't step on your soil, because compacted soil is bad soil. Raised beds also allow for better drainage and warmer soil for planting in the spring. So Mel pulled together some existing techniques, added new elements to create a more defined, specific set of simple instructions that any beginning gardener could follow and have success. Mel's Square Foot Gardening Foundation mission is to teach self-sustainability through gardening and to promote a lifestyle that manages your health in a positive manner. That is consistent with what we at Mayo Clinic wish to promote with our staff, patients, and community. There are many advantages to the square foot gardening method. By using raised beds, which are planted intensively, and eliminating rows between plants, you tend to only the soil needed for producing your harvest, which means using only 20% of the space that conventional row gardening uses to achieve the same yield. More importantly, this equates to far less work for you when it comes to weeding and watering. With this method, you won't need an expensive rototiller to prep the soil. Using the recommended soil mix assures your soil stays loose and friable. The main tools you'll need are a trowel and a small spade or garden fork. Do you have children, grandchildren, neighborhood children? What better reward than teaching our children to foster a passion for growing their own food, being sustainable, and adopting a healthy lifestyle for a bright future? So have I convinced you yet to give this a try? If I did, then let's get started on the specifics. First, you need to decide on your garden's location. While some plants do better with slightly more or less light, most plants need about 6 to 8 hours of sunshine a day. Avoid areas near trees and shrubs, so roots and shade won't interfere. For convenience, have the garden as close as possible to the house, whether it's the front or backyard, so you'll check on it daily. Place it close to where you already like to spend your time, near your children's play area or where you play fetch with the dog. If a garden is stuck in the back corner of a yard, it's out of sight and out of mind, and far easier to neglect. Don't worry about your current soil quality, especially in our area with extremes of either too much clay or perhaps too much sand. You won't be using it anyway. Make sure the area does not puddle after a heavy rain. In other words, make sure there's good drainage. Your square foot garden will be beautiful, so there's no reason to hide it or restrict it to one location. Consider variations in sizes, 4x8 or 4x12 beds for larger production, or perhaps a mini 2x2 foot deck version. If you're doing multiple boxes, make sure to allow enough space between them so you can reach in from all sides. Also, make sure your mower can fit between the spaces, or consider putting rock or gravel between the boxes. The next step is to build your boxes. The standard square foot gardening box is 4 feet by 4 feet. Again, you can make it longer to increase yields, just don't go more than 4 feet wide. You'll need to be able to reach into the box from all directions without straining your back, or without needing to step into the box and compact your soil. Make sure to use untreated wood so there's no chemicals leaching into your soil. Cedar is longer lasting than pine, but it's a lot more expensive, and I found pine works just as well. Use boards at least 6 inches wide. 8 inches is even better, as it allows more space for root development and makes it easier to mix your soil. Alternate your end joints and secure by using 3 deck screws per end. Personally, I like to remove the sod underneath my planting box, as it allows more room for root growth and guarantees that no grass or weeds come through. Other people choose to use landscape fabric to choke out growth, and this method is quicker and easier. Next, you'll fill the box with Mel's mix, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. The grid is what really separates square foot gardening from regular raised bed planting. By using a grid and sticking to an intensive planting scheme, you can maximize yield. No grid often means wasted space, and I can attest to that. I didn't use a grid initially and found I often went astray by not utilizing my space effectively. The grid definitely keeps you more accountable. Grids can be made from wood lath or vinyl strips. Think about recycling window blinds. In a pinch, you can also use string to mark your squares. Now here's where I want to give a little warning. Do not get started with too many square foot gardening boxes that are going to overwhelm you by midsummer. That spring fever does not last long. It's super easy to get really excited in the beginning of the year with all the fascinating descriptions and seed catalogs, and you're going to want to plant everything. So start small, and you can always add boxes later on. Mel's mix is made up of equal parts of vermiculite, compost, and peat moss. Each component has a very specific purpose. Vermiculite helps soak up and hold moisture, yet it drains when oversaturated just like a sponge. It holds water for the plant to use when it's thirsty and keeps the soil loose and friable. The compost adds nutrition, and just like us, plants need a variety of nutrients. So when you're making your mix, it's ideal to use different types of compost for best results. Whether that's animal manure, mushroom compost, or vermicompost, which is otherwise known as worm poo. Peat moss holds a lot of moisture, just like the vermiculite, and adds a lightweight texture to the soil that makes it easier for the roots to grow. Of these different components, vermiculite, unfortunately, is the most difficult to find. Most often, you'll need to obtain it from a large nursery. See the resources provided for area businesses that stock it. Do not buy the small quart-size bags at flower shops. It will be exceedingly expensive. Now, coarse-grade vermiculite is best, but you will likely need to settle for medium-grade vermiculite in a 4 cubic foot bag. Peat moss and compost can be found at most nurseries, hardware stores with garden centers, or big box home improvement stores. See the recipe that we provided. Note that peat moss and vermiculite are very dry and dusty. Have a hose with a fine mist sprayer on hand. Using a large tarp, combine your 3 ingredients, misting lightly when needed to keep the dust down. Add the combined product to your box and then water it so it's moist enough that when you squish a handful, it stays together but no water drips out of your fingers. Alternatively, you can add a small amount of each ingredient into your box, then water and mix, repeat. Fill your box to about 1 inch from the top. If you have some extra soil mix left, use it to fill a square container to grow herbs on your deck, or join forces with someone else you know, maybe a family member, a neighbor, or work colleague, and split a bigger batch. Or bag some so that once the initial batch settles a bit in the box, you can top it off. Do not use potting soil with additives or dirt from your own yard if you want good results. Now that you've got the heavy work done, it's time for planting. You want to give seeds and plants just enough space to reach their full growth potential without allowing wasted space, or even worse yet, space to allow weeds to grow. How many plants you'll put in each square depends on how many inches the plant needs to be spaced apart. Small items, such as radishes, will be planted at 16 in a square foot. Beets, a medium-sized plant, are planted at 9 per square, and so on. One of the best parts of square foot gardening is that you don't waste seeds. You plant precisely so that you often have leftovers. Simply store unused seeds in their envelope in a cool, dry place. The back of the refrigerator in a tightly sealed plastic container works well for me, and then reuse them next year. I've had packets of seeds last for 3 to even 5 years. Plant different items in each square to help foster natural plant rotation. Be aware that different crops are susceptible to different diseases. Growing the same crop in the same soil year after year causes the buildup of specific organisms that cause disease in that crop. Failure to rotate crops will also cause the soil to become depleted of the nutrients that crop needs. The plant will be less healthy and more susceptible to attack. Consider your plant choices and be realistic in what you're going to grow. Square foot gardening is not designed to grow massive plants like trophy-sized pumpkins, and you're not going to open a roadside stand with your surplus yield from a few boxes. Use your space wisely by growing fast growers that you can replant several times in the season. Items like green onions and radishes. Items that are otherwise expensive in the store, like organic greens. And look for seeds that specify that they're compact growers. Also, it can be fun to try a new item that gets kids interested and excited in gardening, something such as strawberry popcorn. Mix in some flowers to attract pollinators, such as bees. Given the reduction in bee colonies, they could use our help, and your yields are going to be dependent on them. In addition to the crops already mentioned, items that grow well in square foot gardening are tomatoes, peas, beans, peppers, broccoli, cauliflower, eggplant, cucumbers, herbs, and flowers. With having such a beautiful garden, you're going to have all kinds of visitors, and not all of them are going to be welcome. While some of those pictured here are awfully cute, they can cause quite a bit of damage in just one night. A simple 2-foot-high chicken wire fence will keep out the bunnies and help deter dogs from running through your beds. For more complete protection, create a cage that goes over the entire growing box. Other solutions for furry guests include spraying the perimeter of your garden box with deer and rabbit repellent. There are many recipes for homemade sprays on the internet. Most involve adding crushed or blenderized hot pepper and or garlic to quarts of water. Let it steep for at least an hour or overnight, strain it through cheesecloth, add to a spray bottle, and spray plants thoroughly. Or if you prefer, there's commercial products such as liquid fence available. Another option is to simply move the garden box to a more protected location on a deck or perhaps in the front of the house. Or you can add a plywood bottom to the box and elevate it up on legs. You can also plant pest deterrent crops. Items that animals consider stinky are certainly less attractive. Now on to less cute guests, bugs. First and foremost, keep a watchful eye. With having a small garden with a width no greater than 4 feet, you should be able to view all parts of your garden with ease. This helps you detect problems early on. Bigger bugs can be hand-picked off plants, and I can hear you saying right now, ew. But really the best way to deal with Japanese beetles, which is that nasty guy pictured here, is to put on a pair of gloves, go out in the morning with a bucket of warm water with a bit of dish soap in it, when it's still very cool outside, and the bugs are very slow moving. Simply brush the bugs into your bucket where they will promptly die. Consider yourself very lucky if a toad makes your garden home. They'll eat a lot of these unwanted bugs. Ladybugs are also another beneficial item in your garden. If a bug infestation gets really significant, it may be best to cut your losses. Simply pull up the crop, especially if it's covered in a lot of eggs, to prevent the spread to other plants. So keep your sense of humor, be flexible, and just accept you will have some losses despite your efforts. Hey, all living creatures need to eat, right? Many new gardeners lose their plants in the first few days after the seeds germinate. Remember, newly sprouted seeds have minimal roots to absorb water from the soil, and tender greenery can't take a really hot, sunny day. New sprouts may require a sprinkling of water a couple times a day to keep them moist. Ideally, fill up your buckets and watering cans in advance and allow them to warm gently in the sun so as to not shock the plants. When plants are established, less frequent watering, a nice long drink once a week, helps drive the roots deeper in the soil. Daily watering of established plants can cause shallow root systems. Shoot for about 1 inch of water a week if Mother Nature hasn't already provided it. Always water the base of the plant, never water the leaves. When you water the leaves, especially if they stay damp too long, it can cause fungal diseases to take hold and spread. To help maintain moisture in your soil, put down a layer of mulch. This also prevents almost all weeds from growing. Definitely a benefit. Do you like to eat on a regular basis? Well, so do your plants. Compost is considered gardener's gold. Compost is decayed organic material, and it's Mother Nature's way of recycling nutrients back into the soil in order for the cycle of life to continue. Finished compost looks like soil. It's dark brown, it's crumbly, and smells earthy, but it doesn't smell stinky. If you want a successful garden, you have to use a form of compost. Compost-fed plants are hardier, and that reduces the likelihood of having to reach for synthetic fertilizers or insecticides. The ideal compost is one you make with your own household and garden waste. Again, see some of the resources at the end of this to give you further guidelines. If you add in a scoop of compost every time you replant a square in your square foot gardening box, and at the beginning of every growing season, you'll keep replenishing the soil to make it nutrient dense for your plants. You can also consider using compost tea to water your plants. Compost tea is a liquid extract of compost that contains plant growth compounds and beneficial microorganisms. It's made simply by soaking or steeping compost in water. While square foot gardening will work for many, especially in an urban setting, there's a plethora of gardening techniques. Scan the internet and you can spend a lot of gratifying hours learning more about edible landscaping, straw bale gardening, lasagna gardening, vertical gardening, container gardening, and aquaponics. What matters is finding an option that works for you. If you follow these basic guidelines discussed in this webinar and in the corresponding support documents, soon you'll be enjoying the fruits and vegetables of your labor.
Hopefully you now have enough information to get started. Good luck and happy planting!